GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows. Available everywhere
Hello everyone and welcome back into the GSMC Fantasy Sports Podcast for our fourth segment of the day. It's going to be our college football segment, a little bit more looking ahead to awards season here as we're wrapping up the college football regular season heading into conference championship weekend. We're going to be taking a little look at the updated Heisman odds. Now I know a lot of people are saying this thing is done and dusted. Ashton Jeanty and Travis Hunter are your top two candidates, and that's what I'm going to say. But there are still cases to be made for certain players. Ashton Jeanty could move ahead and usurp Travis Hunter as the favorite if he absolutely goes crazy in his conference championship game against UNLV. A lot of these guys still have opportunities to prove themselves. It might be a little bit too late, and Travis Hunter at the end of the day will be holding that trophy in New York. But I still want to give these players a benefit of the doubt that each and every single one of them on this list has had an incredible season, maybe some over others as well. But I do feel like I just want to look at this list and appreciate all five of these top candidates here, potentially headed to New York. So without further ado, let's do just that. Starting off at the number 5 position, this guy unfortunately did not acquit himself very well in a big rivalry game. Perhaps the game that could have, vaulted him into the top 4, at the very least top 5 potentially. But unfortunately, Will Howard saw his chances of going to New York drop drastically with that loss to Michigan. A plus 40,000 still was the 5th odds favorite. Mind you, this came out about a week ago, so potentially a lot more updated odds by now. But Will Howard at the tie of the 5th position, and he could have been justified, right? Because he's had a pretty good season playing on one of the better teams in college football. But ultimately, what's been hindering him throughout his entire career, not just the season, is being prone to mistakes, not understanding certain situations, and most importantly, losing big games. That's why Will Howard finds himself in the 5th spot and potentially outside looking in to players actually going to the Heisman ceremony in New York in a couple months' time. So unfortunately, as much as I appreciate what Will Howard did to this program and the money Ohio State was willing to spend on him and to invest in him, it ultimately came up too short for me to consider him as a true Heisman finalist, even though at that point he was number 5 in the Heisman odds. Then we get into really interesting candidates to debate here as we get into the top 4 here. Even though these guys aren't going to win the award, they are still guys who had incredible seasons for top teams. Coming in at number 4, the top team in the country, the quarterback up at Dylan Gabriel, really special talent, plus 6,000 here. And Dylan Gabriel very well could have won the Heisman. For a long stretch of time, he was actually Heisman favorite for many weeks because he was leading the number 1 team in the country. And throughout his career, he's proven to be one of the most prolific passers, not just in the country, but in college football history. One of the top passing leaders all time in college football. Truly storied player, whether he was at UCF, whether he's at Oklahoma, now at Oregon trying to win a national championship and ride off into the sunset. Even though he's not going out with a Heisman Trophy as well. This is truly a guy who will stand the test of time in college football and be revered as one of the top college football players ever. Even if he doesn't win a championship, who doesn't win the Heisman, who cares? This guy holds a lot of weight in college football circles everywhere as a player who truly revolutionized the sport, who truly stands out as a premier player of the past 2 decades in college football. So we thank players like Dylan Gabriel, even though in terms of Heisman, in terms of hype, he's not necessarily the most pretty of options. But I just want to appreciate him for who he was. And he's definitely going to New York, but not walking away with that nice little trophy. Then, kind of a guy in a similar situation, Cam Ward. Another guy with a crazy journey, taking him to Miami, having a fun little season down there, but ultimately his defense did not perform to his level. And so he finds himself the 3rd favorite here at plus 1,400. I do feel, that Miami might sneak into the playoffs. They're going to have a lot happen, potentially Clemson winning the ACC, trying to have the committee talk about that debate, should Clemson be a bid stealer. But even if they don't, this is an incredible season for Miami, for a program that, people were saying were falling off. A lot of issues there with boosters and what have you. But Cam Ward was a paragon of consistency this season. A magical player, leading them back from the dead in a lot of conference games, and truly someone amazing to watch and truly worthy of going to New York and potentially justifiably winning a Heisman Trophy. He also, as like Dylan Gabriel, is very well respected in college football circles as one of the top premier college football players of this era. But unfortunately, magic runs out, and two units don't complement each other. And so his defense and not having signature wins and just the hype around these other two guys truly are what overwhelms him in terms of Heisman odds. So even though I respect Cam Ward for what he did this season for Miami, I do feel like he is someone who is going to go to New York but ultimately not win the award. Now at number 2, this guy is my personal Heisman Trophy winner here. This guy, when it's all said and done, should win the Heisman Trophy. Every single time a defense stacks the box, this guy can crack the code. He stands in the backfield. I don't know what he's doing. He's just standing like a normal person, maybe waiting for a stoplight to change or something. And when he gets the balls in his hands, he really electrifies crowds. Ashton Jeanty. I think to me, he really is the Heisman, as he's proving in that pose, in that photo on my screen. But at the end of the day, he plays for Boise State. And even though he has a chance, unlike all of these other guys, to prove this point in his conference championship game, prove that they're the best group of 5 team. Being the best group of 5 team is different from being, say, the best Big Ten team. Or being, the best ACC team. Because of the fact that Ashton Jeanty plays in a worse conference. Even though, Boise State is one of the best losses in the country, by 3 points to now number 1 Oregon, where Ashton Jeanty had his Heisman moment, I feel like that holds him back. And it shouldn't, but I feel like, this other guy has too much hype surrounding him, too much of a more nationalized brand than Ashton Jeanty, even though, in my humble opinion, if you sell out to stop this guy and he just dominates you, that's impressive. Because guys who have done this at running back position in the past simply should not be averaging what Ashton Jeanty does with 8 to 9 men in the box. He's averaging a yard, close to 2 yards with 8 to 9 men in the box. You shouldn't be averaging even 0 yards. So that's why I feel like Ashton Jeanty is a completely anomalous player in college football. But the guy in number 1 is completely anomalous too, because he plays 2 ways and he plays for a big brand. And that, of course, is Travis Hunter. There's no denying, right, that Travis Hunter is a special player. A 2-way star who has been dominating headlines for every single week of the college football season. He's justifiably going to win the award. But something says to me that when we look at recent history and the momentousness of this decision to award a guy like Travis Hunter who plays both ways the Heisman Trophy, it feels a little bit weird right now when you have a guy in Ashton Jeanty who is breaking, or close to breaking, was so close to breaking a historical running backs college football record. I can't deny that, right? As much as I respect Travis Hunter for what he's done this season, as much as I think his winning the award is highly justified, and he's going to have a very successful potential Hall of Fame career, potentially playing as a 2-way prospect for a great team down the stretch. Ashton Jeanty is something we might never see again, just because of what he brings to the running back position. And I don't necessarily want to ruin Travis Hunter being here at number 1, because, like I said, Travis Hunter is a special player. We may never see a guy play as many snaps as he's done on both sides of the football ever, even though there are a couple college guys who might. High school guys who are coming in who might. So for now, we have to appreciate Travis Hunter for who he is. We all have to appreciate the fact that Ashton Jeanty is this close to history. And that's my point here. So both of these top 2 candidates, it's clear that either one of them is going to win the Heisman, and it's most likely going to be Travis Hunter. But I just want to give all these guys their flowers for very prolific college football careers. And so, in this special moment for a special player, I don't want it to get clouded by the fact that, there were other talented players who, even though lost momentum as the season went on, deserve to go to New York and be represented and talked about. Because they're going to be the players who in the future are the faces of the National Football League and revered by many. So that's why I feel like even though, you can say this race is done, look at the names inside of the list. Look at the names at 3, 4, 5, potentially all the way down. Because these players deserve their flowers as well. But Travis Hunter is truly one of a kind and truly someone who's going to be dominant for years to come in the National Football League, and he deserves his flowers as well. Let me know what you think about the race in the comments. But coming up next to conclude today's show, as always, going over our weekly Shatter Report. The key wide receiver cornerback matchups will define the weekend in fantasy football. We'll be right back to conclude today's show right after this short break.